My guess is that this guy is beholden to Trump. In short, this whole thing represents the surrender of governance and autonomy of football. He is buying into a system that fosters a brutal system of corruption. Crook.
Hey, ask them to subscribe to the channel
Ask them to subscribe. Yeah, give it a like.
and turn on the notification bell.
I'm taking part of your salary.
Come on, let's go, Luis. Let's get started then. Neymar, man, I'm just kidding.
Damn. Shit. Right in your face. Not this again, no.
Hey, Lúcio, for 2 weeks, everyone in world soccer has talked about just one thing.
Neymar?
No. Summarize it for us, please.
This is a story that was supposed to be just another one of those obscure FIPA stories like so many others, right? Just lingering in the hallways until it became a done deal. Journalism at times like these is always welcome and always a lifesaver. In this case, an article by Martin Ziegler from the Times revealed a surreal scheme that was being set up by Infantino, and journalism brought it to light. What is this scheme? It's the creation of a FIFA subsidiary, FIPA Enterprise, Pharaoh World Enterprise, which actually intends to take over the organization of major events. So this was being arranged behind the scenes in the shadows. What happens next? This subsidiary would start receiving private investment, a large amount of private investment, between 20 and 30%. What was the issue? What was the biggest scandal in this story? It's about understanding, it's about us figuring out who's behind this investment. We have big banks, big financial institutions, etc. But in the end, the one behind it is Joshua Kushner. This guy is the brother of Donald Trump's son-in-law. They are major American financiers. In other words, deep down, this story, when it comes to light, when it becomes clear who's behind it, that's when the real scandal breaks out. Because we're seeing a pattern of far too cozy dealings between Infantino and Trump. And then suddenly, the World Cup ends 15 days later. In other words, the whole thing was already well set up. This blows up, showing yet another facet of this far too cozy relationship between Trump and Infantino.
You explained this bombshell that exploded in these last few weeks. What are the consequences of this and what does it represent, right?
The consequences are brutal, man. Maybe some people aren't realizing what's being handed over. Deep down, what's being handed over is the governance of football. It's the whole spirit of the game. I mean, capital calls the shots, man. From the moment you bought a stake, 20 at first, then 30%. It's just that story of, well, once the first one slips through, we don't know where it's going to stop. So deep down, when you open up this loophole, you're handing over the governance of soccer, which is one of the most sacred things in the history of the sport. Soccer is still soccer today because its rules haven't been changed and its autonomy has been preserved. We're talking about autonomy and governance. In this World Cup, all of that has already started to be shaken a little, and now comes this news that, to sum it all up, represents the handing over of governance and the autonomy of soccer.
Can we draw a parallel between this and FIFA Gate?
We definitely can. There's a direct parallel, even if it doesn't seem like it. We don't really romanticize it anymore, right? Because the scams keep happening, and each one is so much bigger than the last that those stories start to come up. Like the old guys arrested in a hotel in Zurich. But the scam was for $150 million. But when we look back, thinking about $150 million compared to this, it's child's play. Because here we're talking about billions. And like done in such a way, with Infantino handing over the autonomy of the highest football authority through a subsidiary. To a friend, to a guy with whom he's been keeping a very cozy relationship in a deal worth billions. So like that, actually, that there is a... And what's happening today seems like a continuation of FIFA Gate. But back then, the FBI, for example, was the investigator. They investigated all of this. Nowadays, they're on the side of the people behind all this. I mean, Infantino is on Trump's side and consequently on the side of the American investigative institutions. So it's a coup, it's FIFA Gate, and one day it might blow up, but I don't have much hope anymore. With airbags, with air conditioning, with everything you can imagine.
What explains Gianni Infantino, president of FIFA, taking this action?
I think that's the main point, right, man? I think that's the main point of this story. What explains that, man? What explains a guy taking these actions, giving so much? It can't just be because he was called cute and Trump told him good boy, slapped him on the butt. It's something much bigger from a while back. What makes me think that? And here I'm talking about hypotheses, okay? And here in this virtual bar, can I talk a bit about hypotheses? My hypothesis is that this guy is beholden to Trump for some reason, because nobody does that for nothing, man. Nobody does what he's doing for nothing, Yeah, there's money behind it. Obviously, everyone is saying it right now, but there's a lot of money behind it. There's a lot of money behind it. He also, his own salary, which today is around $6 million dollars a year. Yeah, it's going to multiply. That's already enough for him to do it. But what we don't see is what's really at stake. His salary is going to increase a lot. But there's more to it, The impression I get is that nobody humiliates themselves this much. This guy, it's not just about the salary. What this guy went through at the World Cup, Everyone called him Trump's puppet even before the World Cup, but he just laughed and stayed there. Sucking up to Trump like that, I usually use a word that I really like. It might sound strange, but it defines things very well. It's the act of absolute genuflection, right, man? Which is when you kneel before someone. He lives in a state of genuflection to Trump. Nobody does that for nothing, You're talking about a country, about an entity that arrested a lot of officials because of investigations into wrongdoing in the American financial system. What do they have on Infantino? Is he being pressured? Has he ever been pressured by the FBI? Have they ever said something like, my friend, we have this and that on you? I think the word that defines Infantino's relationship for me is Infantino is hostage to Donald Trump today. That's the only explanation for what's happening.
And what could change if this is approved, if the FFA is approved?
Everything in soccer. The governance changes, as I already mentioned. Licensing changes, hospitality sales change, which are the real moneymaker of the World Cup. So, all this organization of soccer, the major assets of soccer, move to the private sector. So everything changes. What is hospitality? It's the sale of big packages for games in the World Cup, in major competitions. I mean, obviously, seats at the World Cup are all very expensive, etc. But the real prize is selling those VIP boxes to big corporations. They don't even exist for private individuals, for regular people. Individuals can't buy that. It's sold to big corporations. That brings in millions with champagne service in the VIP boxes, etc. That's hospitality. That hospitality is the real moneymaker. It's already in their hands. It's already been taken by Trump, okay? This is rarely talked about. It's Trump's group that took it in 2022. There's a guy named Ari Emanuel who's the main holder of the hospitality packages, and he's the guy who financed Trump's entire campaign along with a few others. This guy took over FIFA's hospitality way before, back in 2022. So that's everything that's at stake. And when this subsidiary is actually created, it will start to own a lot of these football properties.
That news hit like a bombshell, right? But was it surprising to you?
It was surprising in the sense that it exploded, right? Suddenly journalists were writing articles and all that. But if you think about it, when you stop and think, you go, damn, it's not that surprising, right? When it hits you like, damn, that red card that Trump pulled some strings and got rid of, man, that connects directly to this. How did this guy pull strings? Why was Infantino so afraid of this guy? Something has to be there. So deep down, it's not that surprising. We keep seeing a series of actions. Years ago, this guy gave Trump a peace prize. Then, at the World Cup, he lives in this state of total submission to Trump. He takes away a World Cup, gives a red card, does something absolutely unexpected. And now he announces a property, the creation of a company, completely changes the spirit of what FIFA has been until today. to give this property to someone linked to Trump. So it's surprising, but not that much. When you start connecting the dots, you see that everything is related.
What impact does the influx and distribution of so much money across federations have?
That's also another brutal thing, because what we're talking about is a vote buying scheme, right? You're buying votes. There are 211 federations. The president, to approve the creation of this subsidiary, has to buy the votes of these 211 federations, and he will buy them, and he is buying them, and he will get it approved. He increases the money that's given to each of those federations, and he buys their approval for this. And what about those guys who used to win? You're talking about some island out in the middle of nowhere, some tiny little place that's going to get 10 million a month. So, the guy who holds the vote for that island, damn, he makes money. And you know how these people do it? They do it like this. Let's create a soccer project. Look, FIFA is promoting soccer here in our country. Let's create centers. Hey, my friend, you see the most absurd things in the world, right? You create them. You get half a dozen balls, a little field, and say you took that money from FIFA and put it together and promoted the sport. And it's the easiest thing in the world, right? This happens in every country, right? You put in a fake invoice here, another invoice there, a training center that you got 10 million from FIFA for actually costs 500,000. I'm giving an example hypothetically of how this game works, but this is repeated by 211. So like this, he's buying into a system that fuels a brutal system of corruption. That's no different here in Brazil, right? What does the CBF's voting system look like, for example? On a smaller scale, that's exactly it. You pay salaries to federation presidents, high salaries for these guys. Besides the high salary, there's also a budget to promote soccer. You provide funding to promote soccer, and we don't see any accounting for that.
And what are the personal steps you think Infantino is planning?
First, re-election. He's working on his re-election. He has the right to a final term, and that election is coming up soon. And he's winning, he's securing his re-election by encouraging, by giving so much money to these federations. And then once he manages to get there, he has no limits, right? Because let's say his term ends in 31. He secures a CEO position in this new subsidiary, which goes from $6 million a year to $60 million a year. So he's already buying his own future. And besides that, we know nowadays that he's aiming for something much bigger. He has a plan with Trump to become the UN Secretary General, and he has Trump's support for that. Whether he'll succeed or not, I don't know. But his plans are very ambitious, both politically and financially. Crook.
Lúcio, send everyone my regards and ask them to subscribe to the channel again. Again, man? Yeah, at the beginning and at the end of the video.
No, I don't get paid for that. Bye-bye.